Yuseiboushi is about spending your life idly. The common narrative is that you have to accomplish something in your life. But in this music video, it seems as though the main character isn't interested in accomplishing anything, but rather wants to live in a dream until death. The complexity of it all is captured by the music video itself. So I've broken down the themes and interpreted the story behind this confusing music video. We're first introduced to the red-haired boy, who is standing in the rain. Rain normally calms people, but his thoughts are too strong, making the rain unfulfilling. These thoughts are described as drifting, suggesting that they happen to come to mind rather than him actively thinking. These thoughts are negative, emphasized by the line, "dark thoughts," and he's trying his best to manage them. The moon starts to cover him, expressed in the line, "I'm enshrouded by the blazing dull-colored moon," which could be that the boy in the real world, represented by the white-haired boy, just started to fall asleep. The red-haired boy is the one that's wandering in the dream landscape with his dog companion. This may explain why we find the white-haired boy waking up later in the music video. You note that the moon is physically covering him as well, as it's reflected in the puddle, showing that the moon is above him. This dream leads him to hear a soft, wavering voice, which is another drifting thought that perhaps there's a place for him to relieve him of his burdens, represented by a girl standing among flowers. His emotional burdens are revealed by the line, "with scars on your heart that remains pierced," and also the line, "trampled feelings." Considering that the title translates to "living idly and dying as if dreaming," the white-haired boy reaching out to the notebook titled "Album" has the book directly in the sunlight, while the room is dark, emphasizing the positive feelings of writing in contrast to the negative feelings in his life. More about why he writes and his feelings later. Suddenly finding himself in the field of flowers could be a representation of him spending his life doing nothing but making music, and naturally dying at the end of his dreaming, which explains why the red-haired boy is replaced by the white-haired boy later on, as the white-haired boy has transitioned from his dream self, wandering in the dreams, to his real self now in a place beyond the living. The white-haired boy has what is described as root markings, possibly linked to the big tree, while the red-haired boy has ripple markings. The white-haired boy ends up having ripple markings when meeting the giant. It also makes sense that the red-haired boy represents the sun, as the sun is associated with living. With him no longer there, it further emphasizes that the boy is no longer living. He was drawn to the flower place by the initial soft voice, when he was looking at and reaching out to the moon. The voice he's hearing also says to break through the night and let go of that trembling heartbeat. It feels as though it's existing in a dream, meaning that the voice is real but feels unreal, from the line, "as if it was in a dream." The voice appears to be coming from the giant Zingai. A Zingai is a creature that is manifested from a person's heart. You can see the connection between the Zingai and the main character, as well as how it's connected between them, with the moon representing the Zingai's eye overlapping with the character's eye. It's a lot clearer that the Zingai is the one that's talking during the line, "What dream are you creating for yourself?" The Zingai's voice gets progressively louder, emphasized by "thunderous roar." The following line, "Don't stop dancing to it," refers to the girl dancing. She's also a part of the main character who wants the boy to reunite with her. She represents the moon itself and dances to the Zingai's voice to summon the Zingai at the tree. The dancing shows that she can change shape and form, much like the moon does, as it goes from the full moon to the new moon. The camera angle above her while she spins represents the moon, as her dress spreads across into a circle. The moon in the music video progressively changes shape, and once the full moon has reached the new moon phase, the Zingai is summoned. The "thunderous roar" and "pierce through the night" stresses how this voice and desire to live in a dream is stronger, to escape the difficulties of reality. The real world is portrayed as dark, with a few scenes of the boy's room. The moon is also a nice analogy for this, as it's something that shines brightly in the sky. The line, "remaining submerged in the depths of a daydream," also shows how he wishes to stay living in a daydream. The word "daydream" adds to this, as dreaming doesn't only happen during the night, but also in the day. This is how he remains submerged in it. Quote, Let's vow to reunite. I don't want to." End quote. Despite his desire to live in a dream and die as if in one, there's still some fear behind it, like he had before, from the line "trembling heartbeat." There's some attachment to living, but also some detachment. Quote, "I'm relieved if I become sentimental." End quote. Being sentimental means that there's some level of attachment to life, and that's a relief, because it means that he's not completely detached and disengaged with life to the point that he will want to shorten it. He still sees value in his life, although this side of him is a little weak compared to the negative thoughts he has, as the line, "The back-channeling doesn't seem to repeat." Back-channeling refers to confirmation that a message has been received in a conversation. The fact that it doesn't repeat suggests that he only has this confirmation about the value of his life once, or faintly, leading him to not see the value of his life too strongly, and such he doesn't mind living and dying in a daydream. He can come and go as quickly as a flower blooms and withers. The attachment he has to his life is shown by the music sheet when he brushes his hand across it, and that relates back to the album on the floor. It's a blank music sheet where he can create and write music. This fear and attachment to life is further emphasized by "Dear You, who failed to die." He appears to be continuing down this path of living idly and not actively seeking to shorten his life, but knows that there's an end at some point. However, this end means that the red-haired boy won't be wandering in dreams anymore. Quote, "Preach to my talentless brain, sisters." End quote. He's aware of the religious views on life, but calls his mind talentless, a mind that has no ability in being able to take on board the sisters' preaching, making it pointless to preach to him. He emphasizes this further by the line, "Love and the likes are not enough if my disposition can't be helped." The line, "All I can do is lower my head," can be shame for rejecting the preaching, or submitting to his own ideas about life. In doing so, he drops his mask, which has a crack on one side. The crack suggests that he struggles to keep his mask on while he's around the preachers. The green crystal resembles an eye, and he breaks it, suppressing the eye. When he met the girl in what looks like a womb, and the other time at a dark stage. Neil describes the stage scene as the boy suppressing his eye. He has conflicted feelings of not wanting to see her. His other half, the white-haired self, seems to want to reunite. The girl wants the boy's desire to fully bloom by summoning his Ingai, and the white-haired boy seems to have a stronger connection with the girl. The red-haired boy's resistance is further expressed by the line, "That gaze that pours out everything, so dark that our eyes won't be able to meet," meaning that all the emotions inside him are poured out, but the red-haired boy keeps his eye in the dark, so he won't be able to see it. You see him covering his eye after his eye met with the girl's. When it was time for the white-haired self to move on from the living, he appears in the dream realm through the Torii gates. There was a Torii gate in the real world and another one in the dream, which would suggest that the dreams are connected. Torii gates are known to take people into another world, whether they pop out from another Torii gate or rock. I'm not too sure about that. The scene cuts to the white-haired boy covered in black stuff. Considering how he wanted to live in a dream world, and the white-haired boy is the self that's living in the real world, the strain of living in the real world is represented by the black stuff covering him. When the white-haired boy meets the red-haired boy, they don't seem to get along. Both of them hold each other's mouths shut. This could mean that they both suppress each other's feelings. Quote, "I realized, if you died by a tyrant, then that smile won't have any value." End quote. The tyrant being himself, as he oppresses his own feelings, and that smile of his, therefore not being genuine. When it talks about the white-haired boy's kind words, it's described as spitting out, an action people do to remove something nasty and project it onto something else. In this case, the words "hide them," in reference to the boy's broken heart and trampled feelings, drops onto the red-haired boy. When the boy is asked, "What kind of dream are you creating for yourself?" he answers with the one that would stop him from biting his lips. which means to remove the desire to speak about his feelings, instead of allowing himself to speak. As he says, don't show any weakness. The way he chooses to express himself is by writing lyrics, as there is a book titled Album. This allows him to share his feelings without being explicit, or showing weakness as he calls it. This prevents him from biting his lip, as he gets relief from writing. In an interview with Eve, he previously mentioned how feelings he couldn't share with anyone were written into his music as an outlet. Even though the boy has a way to express himself, he can't bring himself to say exactly what's on his mind by the lines, "The truth is, I want to say," even if it's just pretty words too. The line is cut off, and he doesn't say what he wants to say. Quote, "Captivated by the mirage, you are the extent of being beautiful, just like the future." End quote. Mirage suggests that he's drawn into an illusion. This relates back to dreaming, because dreams are like illusions. He's fallen in love with this dream place that no one knows of, as he keeps his feelings and ideas about life to himself. If there's one thing that's certain in the future, is that we'll all pass on from the living and be in a different place, which he finds captivating and comforting. Quote, "Going towards the story of that day I wished for." End quote. There's a clear contrast between day and night. They each have a dream world of their own. The daytime world has already fallen apart, while the night is still intact. The broken landscape suggests that the day has nothing to offer, which is emotionally unfulfilling, and a reflection of the character's difficult emotions. The sun during the day is also close to the horizon, which shows that it's close to twilight. This adds to the dream world, as twilight is more ambiguous, as both the sun and the moon is visible. The night is associated with dreaming, and its city is still standing and lively, which shows that it has a lot more to him, and he expresses this in the line, "In a blink of an eye, I want to live in an intoxicated dream." When he submerges himself in the water, a quinonite flower blooms behind him, and there are many broken torii gates in the water. This is a place between night and day, and later the place where the Zingai appears with many torii gates and Queen of Nights. It's further emphasized that this is a place between day and night, when the Zingai is floating between the two cities during twilight. The place where the boy is heading towards doesn't have day or night like the real world. This scene with the torii gates and flowers was shown in a circular design. Flowers in general represent fragility and the swift passage from life into death. The Queen of Night only blooms once a year, for one night, before quickly dying. Both the red-haired boy and the girl have colourful strands which resembles the petals of the Queen of Night. The other flower that appears is the Korea flower, which is also known as the Japanese rose, which can symbolize beauty and imperfection. The flower is shown as fluttering like a butterfly before rotting away several times. There's an overlap of how flowers bloom and die, as well as the short lifespan of butterflies. The wings of a butterfly is regarded as beautiful, just like how the petals of flowers are considered beautiful. The idea that life is beautiful and temporary is further emphasized by the ripple in the water. Ripples are a nice pattern to see, but they are only temporary and only last until the water is still again. The red-haired character has ripple markings all over his body and mouth. This suggests that the main character's life is temporary, both in his actions and words. You see his life flash before his eyes, before he finds himself standing in a field of flowers reuniting with the girl and the Zingai. Yuseiboushi can be seen as either a bad thing or a good thing. It depends on where this kind of mindset comes from, and if that makes one disengage with life. Some would see this as a bad thing because people don't accomplish anything with this type of mindset. But do you need to accomplish anything at all with your life? Or would you rather want to live as easily as you can? And what is considered an accomplishment? Isn't that better defined as what you want, rather than a standard that is set for everyone? And if you'd like to see a video discussing about bringing your dream into reality, click on my video about Raison. And until next time, take care.